The opinions I've been hearing on Dragon Age 2 have been like the Burger King Kids Club, rather absurdly mixed. I've bent an ear to many who call it a vastly improved epic perfectly spiced with all the gay sex that got cut out of Mass Effect 2, and an equal number who call it a rushed out cash-in with more loading time than a truck full of giant sea turtles. But even before we begin, I can tell you this. There are two kinds of games in this putrid world of ours, those that are made mainly because the developers thought it would be a lovely thing for everyone to play, and those that are made mainly because the developers thought it would be lovely to add another ballroom to their golden money palace, and Dragon Age 2 is almost certainly in the second camp. How do I know? Because it's called Dragon Age 2. Original thought was apparently at such a premium that they couldn't even think of a subtitle. I can think of a few. Dragon Age Intermission, Dragon Age Loading, or perhaps just Dragon Age Blur. Actually, this is harder than I thought, because before a subtitle can be thought up, we need to determine exactly what Dragon Age 2 is about. Much like the first one, it's all about the representative messages and can't go 5 minutes without someone being really heavy-handedly racist against mages, elves, dwarves, goldfish, etc., which is why I find it somewhat ironic that you're only allowed to play as a human this time around, when the first game let you pick from an entire Burger King Kids Club of races and backstories. Here you're always a human with the surname Hawk, so to compensate for the lack of choice, other characters can actually address you by name. Whoop-de-fucking-do. And I'd just like to point out that this is quite a long game, so being a male character with the first name Ethan is going to stop being funny very fast. During the events of the first game, Hawk and his or her family are driven out of their homeland to a city across the sea, a place with such a huge intolerance for immigrant refugees that you will spend your entire existence there being set upon by gangs of identical dudes every 30 fucking seconds. But this is just the setup. Who's the villain? What's the overarching threat? Wherefore begins the grand adventure? What, in a nutshell, is Dragon Age 2 about? Well, it's about seeing how long you can stretch a game with a total of about 7 rooms. With nothing so harrowing as an engine change on the cards, every character is still assembled from the rather lacking Dragon Age 1 asset pool, including the shiny haircuts made from varnished wood, and the universally identical bodies that leave Hawk's elderly mother with the same massive curvaceous bosoms as a table dancer, Freud. What is new is that several cues have been taken from Mass Effect, and not just the fixed surname monospecies protagonist of unrecorded gender and profession. The conversation system now uses a radial Mass-Ecti interface, with every choice being between the nice response, the nasty response, and the open quotes witty response that never fails to make me want to cave in Hawk's smug fucking face with a book of after-dinner speeches. Also, the whole game favours a Mass Effect hub-based mission system over Dragon Age 1's adventure from place-to-place model, never actually leaving the one city. Now, you could say this was a stylistic choice rather than a cynical attempt to do as little work as possible, but so many questing environments are reused without a single alteration, you'd think the dungeons started opening franchises. There's also been a bit of a tweaking in the combat, and when I say tweaking, I mean in the crystal meth sense. The idea that your character targets whichever enemy they happen to be looking at would be really intuitive if we were fighting in a fucking narrow corridor, so any intention you might have to play with skillful strategy will swiftly descend into wading in and mashing attack like there's a really fat spider on the end of your sword. The fights seem so token and unreal, like they needed to throw in 50% more combat at the last minute to appease the violent shithead marketing board. It doesn't seem to matter where you are. Every 50 paces another group of murderers with some contrived grievance teleport in and fight you to the death. You could be strolling through the park on a summer's day and get savaged by a bunch of art students upset that you walked in on their life drawing class. And they always spawn in a few more when you think you're done, like the game revels in the awkwardness of its controls. Hey, Dragon Age 2, I can't even see who I'm fighting because the camera doesn't have the courtesy to look where I'm looking. We know. That's why we just spawned 10 guys directly behind you and now they've killed all your mages. Ha ha hardy. Ha ha. Mind you, my mages died less often after I'd gone through all their tactical menus and added the request that they drink a potion if they fall below 10% health, because otherwise potions are like after 8 minutes and everyone's too polite to take one. Commanding your allies on the fly is as big a nightmare as ever, especially if Hawk dies and suddenly you have to control someone directly with a completely different array of skills, so it's like your nice familiar hatchback has spontaneously transformed into a submarine. It's hard to dislike them though, because the extensive dialogues between party members is one of the few areas that haven't been skimped on. For the record, I ended up hooking up with the gay mage fellow, and everyone else spent the rest of the game subtly asking him about the size of my turgid warrior cock. This was the only relationship that made sense to me. My version of Hawk had a floppy hairdo and a self-deprecating Hugh Granty sort of face and tended to favour the glib remarks, so my interpretation of the character was that he took it up the arse like a champ. But where Dragon Age 2 falls hardest for me is that I'd almost say it doesn't have a plot at all. I don't get an overall sense of what I'm supposed to be working towards. At first you're questing to raise money for a treasure hunting expedition, which has unexpected bad shit will go down written all over it in Christmas lights, but then it gets pulled off without a hitch and you return to the city and live rich and comfortable for several years. There's still 2/3 of the game to go. Then you're called in to deal with an uprising, which was sort of hinted at in the previous section, so you start to think maybe this is the overarching story. But then that'll get sorted out and the time skips ahead another few years before the remaining third of the game. The only point anything resembling a world-threatening fantasy adventure story occurs is right at the end for the sequel hook. It's a holding pattern, that's what it is. It's someone being kicked out onto the stage to nervously tell stalling anecdotes while they desperately put the play together. Not so much a hero's journey, so much as a hero piddles around for a while, gobbing off his handsome friend.